The cousins aren't wrong that it's unfair. They're just wrong about who made it unfair. Posted to r/am ithasshole. I'm sitting in my grandmother's apartment as I write this. Her reading glasses are still on the side table next to her chair, and I haven't been able to move them. The afternoon light is coming through the tall windows the way it always did when I was a child, casting long golden rectangles across the herringbone floors. Everything smells like her, lavender and old paper and something I can't name but would recognize anywhere. In my hand is a letter from a law firm I've never heard of, informing me that my 3 cousins are formally contesting my grandmother's will. I've read it 4 times now, and each time the words seem less real. Allege that the deceased lacked testamentary capacity. My grandmother, who could recite the provenance of every piece in her collection until the day she died. Undue influence exercised by the beneficiary. Me, who lived 200 miles away and visited when I could, never enough, never as much as I wanted to. I should be angry. I think I'm supposed to be angry. But mostly I just feel tired, and sad, and small in a way I haven't felt since I was a child sitting in this exact spot, listening to my grandmother explain why the frame around a painting mattered as much as the painting itself. Some nights I think I should just give them what they want. Let them sell it, take my quarter, walk away with some money and no family. But then I look around at these walls, at the art she spent her lifetime collecting, at the apartment that holds 60 years of memories, and I don't know how to let it go. I should explain who I am and what this place means. I'm 28 years old. I work as a curator at a regional history museum. Not glamorous, not prestigious, but I love it. I spend my days preserving things, protecting stories, making sure that beautiful objects survive to be understood by people who haven't been born yet. It's the only job I've ever wanted. I got that from her. My grandmother's apartment is in the old part of the city, in a building that was constructed in the 1890s. She moved here with my grandfather in 1962, and after he died in 1987, she stayed. The apartment became her project, her passion, her legacy. Every room is filled with things she collected, not valuable in the way my cousins think, not like there's a secret Picasso hidden in the back room, but valuable in the way that matters to people like her. Like me. There's a writing desk that belonged to a minor poet nobody remembers anymore, with ink stains on the leather top that might have been made by his own hand. There's a collection of cameos that span 3 centuries, each one with a story my grandmother could tell. There's a wall of paintings, local artists, mostly, people who never became famous but who captured something true about the places they lived. The oldest thing in the apartment is a medieval prayer book, illuminated by monks who have been dead for 600 years. The newest is a ceramic vase made by a friend of my grandmother's who passed away last spring. None of these things have massive auction value. The apartment itself, though, that's a different story. Real estate in the old district has exploded over the past decade. The building has been converted to condos, and similar units have sold for sums that make my museum salary look like a joke. My cousins know this. They've known it for years. I think they've been waiting. The will was simple and explicit. My grandmother left the apartment and its contents to me, and only me. She included a letter explaining why, which the lawyer read aloud at the initial meeting. I leave this apartment to my granddaughter because she understands the value of preserving beautiful things. She has spent her life learning to care for history. I trust her to honor what I have built here, to keep these walls standing and these stories alive. The others will not understand, and I am sorry for that. But some things matter more than fairness. When the lawyer finished reading, the room was silent. My mother reached over and squeezed my hand. My aunt, my oldest cousin's mother, stood up and walked out without a word. That was 3 months ago. Since then, my cousins have gone from shocked to hurt to angry to what I can only describe as organized. They've found a lawyer willing to take their case. They've built their argument. And now they're coming for everything. Update 1. 2 weeks later. I need to talk about my cousins, because I know how this sounds. I know it sounds like I'm the victim and they're the villains, and that's not quite right. They're not evil. I need you to understand that. My oldest cousin is 42. She has 3 kids, the oldest about to start college. Her husband was laid off 2 years ago and only recently found work again, at a significant pay cut. They're not poor, but they're struggling in that particular way that middle-class people struggle. Everything looks fine from the outside, but they're one emergency away from disaster. My middle cousin is 39. He went through a brutal divorce last year, one of those situations where everyone loses and the lawyers win. He's paying child support and alimony and rent on a 1-bedroom apartment that he calls the box. He sees his kids every other weekend and talks about them like they're the only thing keeping him breathing. My youngest of the 3 is 34. She's the one I was closest to growing up, before everything fractured. She's single, no kids, works in marketing, makes decent money, but she also has student loans that will follow her to the grave and credit card debt she accumulated during a depressive episode in her late 20s that she's still climbing out from under. They're not asking for my grandmother's apartment because they're greedy. They're asking because they're desperate, or tired, or just looking at a number that could change their lives and wondering why one cousin gets everything while they get nothing. It's not about the stuff, my youngest cousin said to me last week, the only time any of them have spoken to me directly since this started. It's about fairness. It's about family. Grandmother loved all of us. Why should her death only benefit one of us? I didn't have a good answer. I still don't. Is a building worth more than belonging? I keep asking myself that and I never have an answer. Their legal argument is that my grandmother wasn't in her right mind when she wrote the will. That at 87, with mild cognitive decline and significant isolation, she couldn't have fully understood what she was doing. That I, her favorite grandchild, must have influenced her somehow, visited more often than I did, whispered in her ear, turned her against the others. It's insulting. It's infuriating. It's also, I'm terrified to admit, not entirely without foundation. My grandmother did have mild cognitive decline. She forgot appointments sometimes. She occasionally called me by my mother's name. In her last year, she would sometimes lose track of time, thinking it was morning when it was evening, summer when it was winter. But she never forgot her collections. She never forgot the stories. She never forgot who I was or why I mattered to her or what this apartment meant. Her mind was sharp as a blade when it came to the things she loved. I believe she knew exactly what she was doing when she wrote that will. I believe it with everything I have. But belief isn't evidence. And doubt creeps in at night, when I'm alone in her bedroom, sleeping in the bed where she died, wondering if I really knew her as well as I thought I did. My grandmother chose me. But did she choose correctly? Or did she just choose the person most like her? Update 2, 6 weeks in. The legal process is exhausting. My lawyer, a kind, overworked woman who took my case at a reduced rate because she believes in it, has warned me that these contests can drag on for years. That even with strong evidence of my grandmother's capacity, the courts move slowly. That the longer this goes on, the more it costs, the more it drains, the more I'll question whether it was worth it. I've already spent money I didn't have. I've taken on extra hours at the museum to cover the legal fees. I've started selling things, not from the apartment, I could never, but from my own small collection. A first edition I found at an estate sale. A set of antique maps I bought with my first real paycheck. Things that mattered to me, but not as much as this. My cousins, I've learned, are pooling their resources. They've started a group text that I'm obviously not part of, but that I hear about from relatives who try to stay neutral. They're coordinating their testimony. They're building their case piece by piece, 3 against 1, and I'm starting to understand how alone I really am. I've started avoiding family events. It's easier than watching people I grew up with look at me like I'm a thief. My parents came to visit last weekend. They made dinner in my grandmother's kitchen, using her pots and pans, and we ate at her table, and nobody mentioned the lawsuit. My mother asked about my job. My father asked about my car. We talked about the weather. When they left, my mother hugged me for a long time and said, "We love you. You know we love you." But she didn't say she was on my side. She didn't say she believed I was doing the right thing. She just said she loved me, which felt like a consolation prize for something I'd already lost. Update 3, the diary. I found my grandmother's diary 3 days ago. I wasn't looking for it. I was cleaning out a closet, trying to make space, trying to feel like this apartment was mine now and not just a haunted museum of someone else's life. The diary was in a shoebox, wedged between winter scarves and a broken umbrella she never threw away. It spans the last 15 years of her life. The handwriting starts steady and grows shakier over time, but the voice is unmistakably hers, sharp, observant, sometimes funny, often sad. She writes about all of us. All 4 grandchildren. She writes about birthday calls and missed visits and the particular quality of loneliness that comes from outliving everyone you started with. About my oldest cousin, she called today to ask if I'd updated my insurance forms. Said she was worried about me. I don't think she's worried about me. I think she's worried about what happens after me. I tried to remember the last time she visited just to visit, not because she needed something, and I couldn't. About my middle cousin, he brought the children last month. They ran through the apartment like it was a playground, knocked over the miniature carousel, broke one of the horses. He didn't apologize. He said I shouldn't have fragile things lying around. As if this apartment hasn't been standing for a century, as if his children couldn't be expected to behave for an afternoon. About my youngest cousin, I love her. I do. But she looks at my things the way her mother does, Not at what they are, but at what they're worth. She asked me once what I would sell if I needed money. As if I would ever need money badly enough to sell pieces of my own heart. And then, about me, she sat with me for 3 hours today, just looking at the cameos. She asked questions I haven't been asked in 40 years. She touched them gently, like they might feel pain. When she left, I felt less alone than I have in months. She sees what I see. She loves what I love. She is the only one who could take care of this place after I'm gone. I cried reading that. I cried for an hour, sitting on the floor of that closet, surrounded by old scarves and memories and the weight of being chosen. But there's more. There are also entries where she second-guesses herself. Where she worries about what she's setting in motion. I know this will hurt them. I know they'll feel abandoned, or cheated, or both. But I cannot leave this apartment to be divided and sold. I cannot let everything I've built become numbers in someone's bank account. Is that selfish? Maybe. I've been selfish about these walls my whole life. I don't know how to stop now. I wonder sometimes if I'm punishing them for being less like me. If that's fair. It's not their fault that they don't love old things, that they don't see beauty where I see it. They were raised in a different world. But I can't pretend they're something they're not. I can't leave my life's work to people who will destroy it out of indifference. I talked to the lawyer again today. He asked if I was certain. I said yes. I don't know if that was true. Reading her doubts felt like a betrayal somehow. Like she was supposed to be sure, supposed to be unwavering, supposed to have chosen me from some position of absolute clarity. Instead, she was human. Uncertain. Trying to do the right thing while knowing there might not be a right thing to do. The cousins aren't wrong that it's unfair. They're just wrong about who made it unfair. Update 4. The mediation. Our lawyers suggested mediation before going to trial. A chance to talk, to compromise, to find some middle ground before the courts make the decision for us. We met in a conference room that smelled like carpet cleaner and burnt coffee. My 3 cousins sat on one side of the table. I sat on the other. Alone. The mediator was a patient woman with gray hair and a practiced neutral expression. She asked each of us to share our perspective. To really listen. To try to understand where the others were coming from. My oldest cousin went first. She talked about how hard the past few years have been. How she lies awake at night doing math in her head, trying to figure out how to pay for braces and college and the roof that needs replacing. She talked about how she'd always assumed that when grandmother died, there would be something for all of them, not just one. We're not trying to be cruel, she said. We're not trying to take something that belongs to you. We're trying to survive. And it feels like grandmother forgot about us. Like she looked at her 4 grandchildren and decided 3 of them didn't matter. My middle cousin was angrier. He talked about the divorce, about the child support, about the child he barely gets to see. He talked about sitting in his box apartment, looking at pictures of his kids, doing the math on what a quarter of that apartment's value could do for his life. Do you know what I could do with that money? I could get a real place. I could have room for my kids to stay overnight. I could be a father again instead of a visitor. He looked directly at me. What are you going to do with a 6-room apartment in the old district? You're single. You don't have kids. You work at a museum. You don't need it. We do. My youngest cousin was the hardest to hear. Because she wasn't angry. She was sad. We used to be close, she said to me. Do you remember? We used to share things. We used to talk. Now I feel like grandmother built a wall between us. Like she decided you were worthy and we weren't, and now I have to live with that for the rest of my life. Her voice cracked. I don't care about the money. Not really. I care about what it means that she didn't think of us. I care about losing my cousin. I care about this family falling apart. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't know what to say. I tried to explain what the apartment meant to me. The history. The memories. The promise I made to myself that I would honor what my grandmother built. But even as I said the words, they felt thin. Abstract. Hard to weigh against mortgage payments and child support and the specific, quantifiable pain of not having enough. I know it's unfair, I said finally. I know you're struggling. I know grandmother's choice hurt you, and I'm sorry for that. But I didn't make this choice. She did. And she had her reasons. Her reasons were that she loved you more than us, my oldest cousin said. Not angry. Just stating a fact. I didn't argue. How could I? She was probably right. The mediation ended without resolution. We agreed to keep talking, but we all knew we were just delaying the inevitable. Either I give up the apartment, or we go to court. I don't know if I'm fighting for grandmother's wishes or just fighting because I don't know how to surrender. Update 5 now. It's been 4 months since I got that first letter. 4 months of lawyers and sleepless nights and family gatherings I don't attend and phone calls I don't return. The legal case is still ongoing. My lawyer says we have a strong position, the will is clear, there's no evidence of undue influence, and my grandmother's doctor is willing to testify that she was mentally competent. But strong positions can still lose. And even if I win, what exactly do I win? An apartment full of ghosts. A family that will never speak to me again. A victory that feels like loss no matter how I frame it. I've been going through my grandmother's things more carefully now. Not to sell them or to catalog them for the legal case, but to understand them. To understand her. I found letters she wrote to my grandfather after he died. Letters she never sent, obviously, but that she kept writing for years. In one of them, she describes this apartment as the only place in the world where I know exactly who I am. I understand that feeling. I feel it too, standing in these rooms, surrounded by these objects. This is the only place where I feel completely like myself. But is that enough? Is my sense of self-worth more than my cousin's relationship with his children? Is my aesthetic attachment worth more than my other cousin's desperate need for financial security? I don't know. I've never known. I keep hoping the answer will become clear, but it doesn't. It just gets more complicated. My parents called yesterday. They want to have dinner. They want to talk about the situation. I know they want me to compromise, to give in, to make peace. Part of me wants that too. Part of me wants to call my cousins and say, "Fine. You win. Take the apartment. Sell everything. I'll take my quarter and walk away." But then I think about the prayer book illuminated by monks 600 years ago. I think about the cameos my grandmother showed me when I was 8 years old, explaining how the artists carved them in negative space, creating beauty from absence. I think about the writing desk where a forgotten poet might have drafted his only published work. My cousins would sell all of it. Not because they're bad people, but because they don't see it. They don't understand that some things are more valuable than their price. My grandmother knew that. She spent her whole life knowing that. And she trusted me to keep knowing it after she was gone. So I don't call them. I don't give in. I don't compromise. And I don't know if that makes me strong or stubborn, principled or selfish. So, Reddit, I'm asking. Am I the asshole for fighting to keep this apartment? Should I give up? Compromise somehow? Sell the contents and keep the space, or keep the contents and sell the space, or just surrender entirely and try to salvage what's left of my family? I've been thinking about this for months, and I'm no closer to an answer than I was when I started. Some days I think my grandmother was right, that some things matter more than fairness, that beauty and history and preservation are worth fighting for. Other days I think I'm just a selfish woman clinging to real estate while my relatives struggle. My grandmother chose me. But she wasn't sure it was the right choice. She wrote that herself, in her own words, in her own shaky handwriting. How can I be sure when she wasn't? I love this apartment. I love what it represents. I love who I am when I'm here. But I also loved my family once, before all of this. I loved Sunday dinners where everyone talked too loud. I loved holidays where the kids ran screaming through my aunt's house. I loved being part of something bigger than myself. Now I'm part of a lawsuit. Part of a conflict. Part of a story that will be told at family gatherings for generations, assuming there are any family gatherings left to have. Is a building worth more than belonging? I keep asking myself that, and I never have an answer. Maybe you do. TLDR, my grandmother left me her apartment, worth a lot, and art collection, worth less but priceless to me, in her will. My 3 cousins are contesting it, arguing she wasn't mentally competent and that it's unfair for one grandchild to inherit everything. They have real financial struggles. I have real emotional attachment. I found my grandmother's diary and she wasn't even sure she made the right choice. The legal battle continues. I'm exhausted and I don't know what's right anymore. Should I keep fighting or let go? Edit. I want to clarify one thing since I've seen it in the comments. I have considered offering them a buyout, letting them sell the apartment and its contents, and I would buy back the items I care most about. But there are 2 problems. First, I don't have the money. My share of the sale wouldn't cover the items I'd want to preserve. Second, my grandmother specifically asked me to keep the apartment intact. These walls have heard 60 years of living, she wrote. Don't let them become someone else's blank canvas. I don't know how to honor that wish and also make peace with my cousins. Maybe that's impossible. Maybe I'm the one making it impossible. Edit 2. Someone asked why I don't just let them buy me out. They take the apartment, I walk away with money. The answer is the same as above. It's not about the money for me. It never was. But I understand that's hard for people to believe, especially people who need money. Especially my cousins. Edit 3. I should also say, my grandmother wasn't wealthy in the way that makes this easy. She didn't have savings or investments to leave everyone. The apartment was her entire estate. Her life savings, converted into walls and windows and 60 years of careful curation. When she left it to me, she left me everything she had. Which is why my cousins feel the way they feel. I understand that. I do. I just don't know what to do about it. I'm going to stop writing now. It's getting dark outside, and the light in this apartment does something strange at dusk. It makes everything look golden, precious, like the whole room has been dipped in amber. My grandmother used to call it the honey hour. She said it was her favorite time of day. I'm sitting in her chair, looking at her things, trying to feel her presence or her guidance or something that will tell me what to do. But she's gone, and she left me with a gift that might also be a curse, and I'm no closer to knowing the difference than I was 4 months ago. If you made it this far, thank you for reading. I know it was long. I know it's complicated. I know there probably isn't a right answer. But if you have one, I'm listening. Here's what I don't know, whether I'm honoring my grandmother or just being stubborn. She chose me. She wrote it in her own handwriting, explained it to her lawyer, left a letter saying I was the only one who understood. For months I held onto that certainty like a lifeline. Then I found her diary. She wasn't sure. She wrote about her doubts late at night, in shaky handwriting that got worse over the years. She wondered if she was punishing her other grandchildren for being different from her. She asked herself if it was selfish to care more about objects than people. She talked to her lawyer and said she was certain, then wrote that same night, I don't know if that was true. How can I be sure when she wasn't? My cousins aren't evil. I need people to understand that. They're struggling. One is about to lose her house. One barely sees his kids because he can't afford an apartment with a spare bedroom. One carries debt from a depressive episode that will follow her for decades. They look at this apartment and see numbers that could change their lives. I look at it and see 600 years of history that will be scattered to estate sales and auction houses the moment I let go. The cousins aren't wrong that it's unfair. They're just wrong about who made it unfair. I didn't write that will. I didn't ask to be chosen. I didn't whisper in my grandmother's ear or manipulate her into leaving me everything. I just showed up. I sat with her for hours looking at cameos. I asked questions about the prayer book illuminated by monks who've been dead for centuries. I touched her things gently, like they might feel pain. She saw herself in me. Maybe that's love. Maybe that's just narcissism dressed up as legacy. Is a building worth more than belonging? I keep asking myself that and I never have an answer. I've started avoiding family events. It's easier than watching people I grew up with look at me like I'm a thief. My parents stay neutral, which feels like abandonment wearing a polite mask. My youngest cousin, the one I used to be close to, said she doesn't care about the money. She cares about what it means that grandmother didn't think of them. I don't know how to argue with that. I don't know how to explain that grandmother did think of them, she just didn't like what she saw. Some nights I think I should just give them what they want. Let them sell it, take my quarter, walk away with some money and no family. Start over somewhere without 60 years of someone else's memories pressing against me from every wall. But then I look at the writing desk where a forgotten poet might have drafted his only published work. I look at the cameos my grandmother showed me when I was 8. I look at the medieval prayer book that survived 6 centuries only to end up here, in my hands, waiting to see if I'm strong enough to protect it. My grandmother trusted me with everything she spent her life building. Not money, meaning. Not real estate, memory. I don't know if I'm fighting for her wishes or just fighting because I don't know how to surrender. The legal battle continues. My lawyer says we have a strong position. But even if I win, what do I win? An apartment full of ghosts. A family that will never speak to me again. A victory that feels like loss no matter how I frame it. I keep waiting for clarity. For some sign that I'm doing the right thing. For my grandmother's voice in my head telling me to hold on or let go. But she's gone. And she left me with a gift that might also be a curse. I still don't know the difference.